Thank you, Christina. Emory Douglas was born on May 24th, 1943, in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He has been a resident of the San Francisco, California Bay Area since 1952, where he attended the San Francisco City College and majored in commercial art. In 1967, Douglas became the revolutionary artist and Minister of Culture for the Black Panther Party. He redesigned the Black Panther newspaper and switched to web press, which allowed for colored printing and use of graphics. A key part of Douglas's responsibilities included art direction, design, and illustration for the newspaper. During his tenure, Douglas created powerful images to depict the reality of racial injustice in America and to promote the party's ideologies. His distinctive style established the militant-chic aesthetic, which sought to flip the cultural paradigm of African American victimhood to one of celebration and powerful outrage. In addition to this, Douglas aligned the Black Panther Party with third world liberation struggles and anti-capitalist movements from around the world. He continued his political work with the Black Panther Party until the early 1980s. Douglas worked at the Black community-oriented San Francisco Sun-Reporter newspaper for over 30 years after the Black Panther newspaper was no longer being published. He continued to create powerful artworks that resonated with decolonial and anti-capitalist movements nationally and across the world. Emory Douglas, his work has been subject to numerous retrospectives, including the Museum of Contemporary Art, Los Angeles, in 2007, 2008, the New Museum in New York in 2009, the Urbis Arts Centre in Manchester, UK in 2009, and the Gus Fisher Gallery in Auckland, New Zealand in 2009. And this is just to list a few. His most comprehensive monograph, as Christina mentioned, is Outside, was published in 2007, The Black Panther, The Revolutionary Art of Emory Douglas. In his retirement, Douglas continues to travel extensively for lectures and exhibitions, while also collaborating with artists in Chiapas, Mexico, Auckland, New Zealand, and Brisbane, Australia. Currently, Douglas's work is part of Have We Met? Dialogues on Memory and Desire, on view at the Stamps Gallery until November 18. It has been my deepest honor to work with him to include some of his iconic prints in the exhibition, and now to introduce him to you. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Emory Douglas for the Penny Stamps Distinguished Speaker Series.
Thank you, thank you. I would like to start off by saying all power to the people. And before we get into the presentation itself, I have a short video I would like you to see. I was a couple years back, about 2 years back, I was given a lifetime award by the AIG, American Institute of Graphic Art, and it kind of sums up who I am. And so thereafter, we will go into the actual presentation.
For 22 million black Americans, the dream has been deferred, the promises unfulfilled. Twice as likely as whites to be unemployed. 3 times as likely as whites to die in childbirth. 3 times as likely to live in poverty.
In the 50s and 60s, there was segregation here in the Bay Area and all over the country. There was a curfew for young blacks my age in the Fillmore district where I live. It was a disturbing thing. There were civil rights movements here in San Francisco. They would show on the national news the dogs being sicked on the marchers, being sprayed with the hoses, being beaten with the batons. You would see that.
The first time I got arrested was 13 years old. I was out there shooting dice with the older guys.
I was just being bad as a youngster. At other times, same thing, being incorrigible, in and out. I went to the California Youth Authority. The last phase you go before you go to prison system. I was accepted to work in the print shop there. And that was really my first introduction to graphic designing. It was suggested that I go to City College. That's how I got exposed to how to put together publications. The whole advertising field was predominantly white. There were myself and maybe one other African-American student in the class. You're coming up at a time when this whole Black Power movement is coming about. I was beginning to do artwork in connection with that. Huey Newton and Bobby Seale took up the challenge and started the Black Panther Party. The symbol of the panther came from Alabama during the Civil Rights Movement. There's a discipline, determination to want to fight against the injustice. Young people who were confronted with the same issues that they are today. Police abuse, justified murders of young blacks, unemployment, wars going on. Even though some of that may have been a foreign language for me from coming out of the hood and where I was, I didn't come in as intellectual. Many people didn't come into the party as scholars, came in because of the desire of wanting to change things. Huey said, we're gonna start the newspaper. We want you to be the revolutionary artist. My mom thought I was crazy. They took out an insurance policy on me because they didn't think I was gonna survive. The initial idea was to inform and to enlighten and to educate people about the basic issues in the community and to tell our story from our own perspective. Initially, it was myself, Eldridge Cleaver, running the whole thing. We used to work out of his studio apartment. We had an X-Acto blade, some white sheets of paper. We would typeset them on the typewriter with the ball, cut and paste them with rubber cement glue. We couldn't only afford but one color ink, and so it was black plus one other color. But as we evolved, we developed into a full-fledged operation. The height was 400,000 papers on a weekly basis. We were creating a culture of resistance, a culture of defiance and self-determination.
The party lives by a 10-point program. Its demands include an immediate end to police brutality and the murder of black people.
Huey wanted me to draw this pig, and on this pig we were going to put this badge number. It came to me, why don't I put the belt around it, stand it up on the two hoofs? And it took on a life of its own. It transcended the Black Panther Party and the African-American community, and that became the symbol of those who were abusing their power. The panther was an animal that if you put it into a corner, it would attack. But it wouldn't attack anyone unless it had to defend itself. Contrary to what people say about the panther, everybody didn't carry guns. And the guns were only for a limited part of the Black Panther Party. Around '69, we began to focus on the social program. We used to get up 3, 4 in the morning, cook the breakfast for kids before they went to school.
To see to it that our children can eat in the mornings, grow up to be strong.
We had a free breakfast program all across the country. But not only the Black Panther Party had them, but you had community begin to do breakfast programs. The treasurer of the state of California said that the Black Panther Party was feeding more hungry children in the United States government, which was true. That's how you had these free lunch programs implemented into the school. I became the Minister of Culture because we began to evolve and grow. The community wasn't then a reading community, but they learned through observation and participation. People would get the gist of the story through just looking at the pictures and maybe reading the captions. I began to mimic woodcuts with markers and pens, playing with shadows and photographs to get that bold, broad look. My art is about enlightening and informing people about issues. Not necessarily everything I do is provocative. A lot of it is based on fact. It may be a provocative interpretation, but it's not a distorted interpretation. You leading by example. Whether people agree with you or not, they're beginning to do it their own way. So you transforming mindsets and thinking, and therefore you become public enemy number one. One of the locations where we used to get our paper printed told us later on that they would let the FBI come in and read the paper. You had them dressing up criminal elements, like Panthers, going into these businesses that were supporting us and shaking them down and threatening them in the name of the Panthers. A young African-American brother who came by the office one day with a forged letter on Panther stationery saying, "Why are you threatening me with this letter, asking me for more money when I'm doing the best I can?" And he's shaking. He's shaking. And Bobby's trying to explain to him that that's not us, that's the police. Black Panther Party's demise was COINTELPRO, the government's program to destroy and discredit the party by any means necessary.
J. Edgar Hoover is on record as branding the Panthers the greatest threat to the internal security of the country.
Infiltrating the party with agent provocateurs to create dissension. They were exploiting our limitations as young people. You have to understand this was a youth movement. Black Panther Party were young people from 16 and a half, 17, 18, 19, 21, 22 years of age. Today, the actual organization doesn't exist, but it left a blueprint for people to be inspired by. Those social programs, being able to use my art to enlighten and to inform and educate, all that is a part of the legacy. Art has relevancy, whether it's to exploit you or pacify you or to enlighten you and inform you. It's a language. That's the power of it.
Thank you. A little of everything that you saw I was going to talk about. Now I don't need to talk about it. I can go through the art images. Some will be retrospective images that I've done in the past. There would be also more recent stuff that I've done. Hopefully, with time permits, within the framework of the time, I'll get to showing you some of the travels and the collaboration with other artists as well. So I'm going to go right into the presentation now, this phase of it. I'll just tell you that that's the real actual icon that you see out there out to your left of the panther. The one to the right was the croc, was the white supremacist right-wingers who ran the county in Lowndes County, which was about 80,000, 80% black, 20% was white. The white supremacists ran the county back in the day, and you had to have a symbol to be a political organization. So they had a white croc, a rooster, which symbolized white supremacy. It was during 1965 when the Voters' Rights Act was passed. You had blacks whose students for a Nonviolent Coordinating Committee called SNCC, who went to the South, and they also went to Lowndes County to enlighten and inform those who were sharecroppers, who basically could read or write in that county about their right to vote. They had always wanted the right to vote, but they had been intimidated and everything around regarding the right to vote. So when they came, SNCC came, they decided that they would become voters. And they didn't want to be a part of the Democratic Party nor the Republican Party. So they started the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, and that's what they called themselves during that time. This is symbol in the South, in the rural South. This is Lowndes County, Alabama. This is a shack, no roads, a lot of that, where they started the organization. This is showing you on the knoll. This is pre-Black Panther Party. This is where the symbol comes from, when they said, vote November 8th, pull the lever for the Black Panther, and go home. This is in 1966. So this puts the kind of context into the symbol of the Panther and in the spirit of where it comes from. This is a more recent one I did to start it off, of one I've remixed on several times here. And now I'm going to show you the first Black Panther newspaper. That was on a legal-size sheet of paper, typed on a typewriter. Markers stood for the headlines. It was about a young man named Denzel Dow, who was 13 years old, mentally, physically challenged, who was murdered by the police in California, in Richmond, California. And the family reached out to the Panthers early on to assist with helping them with bringing attention to the murder. Here again is showing that I show this paper because Stokely Carmichael, a well-known activist, which you might see sometimes if you research or look online. When SNCC, Student for Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, was beginning to disband, and we drafted him into the Black Panther Party, as opposed to going into the regular other military. We drafted him into the Black Panther Party. This was the first, you've seen the caricatures of the pigs. Well, this was the first pig drawing that I was given to do of some clip art. So I had to touch it up in the whole bit and clean it up. And it was given to me by Huey P. Newton because the fact there was the police in the community who were harassing and intimidating people in the community. Each week we were going to put the badge number on that pig drawing to let the people expose to the people who these were, the bad actors in the police department, in the community. We early on did give the definition of what a pig is: a low-natured beast that has no regard for law, justice, or the right of people, a creature that bites the hand that feeds it, a foul, depraved traducer, usually found masquerading as the victim of an unprovoked attack. I'm going to try to go smoothly, but maybe efficiently, because of the time frame to get through a lot of things. Some of the images I will talk about, others I'll just show so that you'll be able to see them. This was done in the era of when African Americans and blacks began to define themselves other than Negro, which was done by the colonizer. We began to define ourselves as Afro-American, black, or what have you. And so that's why you see Black Power on the boot. This is an image of the first young Panther original Panther who joined the party. His name was Little Bobby Hutton. He was 15 years when he joined. Huey Newton and Bobby still had to get permission from his mother for him to join the Black Panther Party. He was murdered by the Oakland police in 1968, 4 days after Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. He was shot over 19 times by the Oakland police. Here again, 1968, this is still used in the early days when we used the pig as a caricature to express and show the inhumane situation that we were confronted with. In 1968, in the country was a very volatile year. You had the war in Vietnam, all the other things going on. You had many rebellions during the 60s within the United States. You had over 300 rebellions during that period within the confines of the United States here. And so there were sometimes when the rebellions took place, you had the police who had to retreat from the neighborhoods. And so this is just one of those illustrations kind of playing off of that, where it's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The U.S. military is hell outside, it's hell inside. And it's spelled America with 3 Ks. I'm not the first to use the 3 Ks, but I thought it was relevant to use with this image. Here again, using the caricature again, and using the word Babylon, the biblical word, to coin America. Here I have the pig standing in the collage of the cutout of the Pentagon, ready for overkill. Missile between his toes, blood-sucking vulture on the butt of the gun, wrench rope in one hand, hand grenade in the other, drooling dollar signs out the mouth and the glasses. And in 1968, you had in New Haven, Connecticut, you had Bobby Seale, 2 Panthers, Bobby Seale, Erica Huggins, who were fighting for their lives and exonerated for a murder they did not commit. Kent, Ohio, you had white students who were murdered by the National Guard for protesting against the war in Vietnam. Augusta, Georgia, Jackson, Mississippi, and many other campuses. You had black students in rebellion on those campuses. And you had the war in Vietnam, you had Cambodia, Laos, and the resistance and the struggle for the Palestinians. All of these things were going on and many more in 1968. Also, they had the apartheid regime being fed by the US government, the British and Germany during that period. You had John Carlos and Tommy Smith, who went to the Olympics and gave the Black Power sign, held a fist up. It was in regards to meetings that had taken place in the community, in regards to before they went, because they wanted to go there to discuss the concerns of the basic human rights against the African American community. And so the Olympians couldn't come to a consensus on what they would do, so when John Carlos and Tommy Smith went there, they gave the Black Power sign, the fist up. You also had, that was a year, just a celebration yesterday, I believe, where you had the students who were massacred before the Olympics in Mexico. This was called At Ease. This is 4 years later in the 1972 Olympics. The protests still continue. And you had Vince Matthew and Wayne Collette, two African-American runners who ran and won their race. When they came up on the podium, they just stood on the podium. They didn't raise their hands. They took off, one of them had on the shoes, all those things. Nothing to pay homage to what was the national anthem at that then, thing which you have Kaepernick done today, they were doing back then. This is the back of that paper. It's called At Ease. This is called the Olympics, where they run the race. They come to the podium. They stand up on the podium with the American flag. And when they get back home and when it's over, a nigger is a nigger is a nigger. Doesn't matter if you're a doctor, you're a lawyer. In America, if you're black, you'll be profiled or have been profiled. Example of that, over 600,000 young black and brown in New York City were profiled for many years. It's just recently with the recent mayor that they resolved that issue in a lawsuit. It acknowledged that it did take place. Here's showing solidarity with people's struggles around the world, still using the pig caricature. Get out of the ghetto, get out of Africa, get out of Asia, get out of Latin America, US imperialism. It's all the same. Local police, National Guard, Marines. It all comes under Homeland Security. All this comes under Homeland Security. Now, we was talking about then, you had to your right was Richard Nixon, who was the President of the United States. To your left was Henry Kissinger, who was the Secretary of State. This is who these caricatures are. And it says, ha, 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 good old American peace. 50 years later, still the same thing. Then they used the character as a pig, a U.S. imperialist, a little rat, little pit rat, winding up his little toys and sending them off to war. And they go and they realize they're fighting the wrong war, and many of them came back and joined the Black Panther Party. Peace with honor. You had those who refused to go to war. You had those who went to Canada, went to prison, went to Europe and Scandinavia, but they just refused to go. Here we're showing what the psychological impact of what war does to human beings. Today, you got, look what, and they don't tell you, at least 4 veterans of war who commit suicide every day in this country. Free the GIs. Our fight is not in Vietnam. Our fight was not in Vietnam. The Vietnamese wasn't calling us nigger. The Vietnamese wasn't lynching us. The Vietnamese wasn't causing inferior education, indecent housing. Our fight was not in Vietnam. Our fight was right here in the US. Here's the same paper that we used with some of our Latino brothers, and it's called Bastilla. They were the 7 La Siete de la Raza. They had been accused of killing a San Francisco policeman. They had no way to plead their case, so we shared 4 or 5 of our papers with them. We even got them a lawyer so that they could have a lawyer when they went to court. And eventually they were found not guilty of killing the San Francisco policemen. But can you imagine if they did not have any community support? They would still be in prison or died in prison or in the gas chamber. Here again is another paper that we did with them. Boycott letters. This is one day Cesar Chavez and the United Farm Workers were on their way to the state capitol. They passed our office in Oakland, California, and we went out, and there was Cesar Chavez. He said they were going to the Capitol to protest against the chemicals that were being sprayed on the lettuce that was harming the farm workers who were working in the fields. And they were hungry and needed some place to eat. So we worked it out where we had our school about 20 blocks away, that when we took 50 farm workers and had lunch with them, and they continued on to Sacramento, picking up people on the way in regards to this boycott. And to show our solidarity, I designed this cover of the paper to show our solidarity with the boycott letters. And we did many things other with them as well. This says, we want decent housing fit for the shelter of human beings. This is a provocative mother protecting her baby from the rodents. And while she's protecting them, the rodents are coming around and sneaking up to attack the baby. Here's one that says, whatever is good for the oppressor has got to be bad for us. This is when they were sending unmanned little things, Sputniks, up into space. And it says, hey, handle these slaves with care. We're going to need them for Mars, Pluto, and all those other planets. And then you hear the slaves getting off the pig spaceship saying, I knew we should have stopped this shit before it got off the ground. And then you had the pig over here with the pick and shovel saying, okay, goddammit, don't take 400 years this time. This could be right here today. Save the children. This is a worldwide thing. This is right here in this country. Africa, Asia, Latin America. Save the children. Freedom. Freedom in the context of the conditions, the environment the one lives in, the frustrations of it sometimes. But at the same time, in designing stuff, you won't see a broom this big, Brett come up to his knees. But it's just the impact of how you put it together that gives the aesthetics of it, that makes it work. You had Richard Nixon, his administration, coined the word black capitalism. We said if Richard Nixon coined the word black capitalism, it ain't worth much of nothing. It's like a weed. And when you chop down imperialism, then it's going to knock over black capitalism. Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, California, Chicago, New York, America, freedom is a constant struggle. We are soldiers in the army. We have to fight, although we have to die. We have to hold up the blood-stained banner. We got to hold it up until we die. My mother, she was a soldier. She had in her hand the freedom plow. And when she got old and couldn't fight anymore, she said, we got to get up and fight anyhow. My father, he was a soldier. He had in his hand the freedom plow. And when he got old and couldn't fight anymore, he said, we got to get up and fight anyhow. Justice. I just want to testify. I'm not going to sit around any longer. I got freedom on my mind. We shall survive without a doubt. This image, I just made an arrangement with the Black Lives Matter movement to use it, and they're going to be publishing to raise funds for the different organizations and groups. Vote for Survival, free food program. We used to have 10,000 bags of groceries in some chapters and branches. Others who didn't have as much, they could give maybe 500 bags. Whatever we had in different chapters and branches, we gave away to the community. And we had vendors who would donate and make those contributions to the programs. All power to the people. It shows the many social programs. We had people's free health clinics, the free breakfast for school kids. We had alternative schools, all those things and pointing out the contradictions of what the government wasn't doing that could have been done to help those in need. A vote for Chisholm is a vote for survival. Hillary Clinton was the first woman to run for president. Shirley Chisholm was the first woman to run for president. Shirley Chisholm was a congressman, a black woman, who ran for president, and we supported Shirley Chisholm. She even came to the Oakland, California, in the Bay Area, and we held rallies in support of her and when she ran for president. Fight sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell anemia is a disease that predominantly impacts the African American community in this country, and there's no cure for it. And there was nothing being done about it. So we began to take on that with doctors and our health clinics. We had alternative health clinics. And we did over 100,000 free testing, where you just prick the finger and have the blood sample tested to see if you have the sickle cell. You had one Panther who was ill most of his life, didn't know what was going on with him. And when he wrote his book, he said that when he joined the Panthers and he took the test, that's when he found out that he had sickle cell anemia was his problem. Here again, Black Genocide, sickle cell anemia, one of the covers of the paper, showing the sickle cells themselves and how they look. This is also germ warfare declared against blacks in 1939, 1940. You had these black sharecroppers, about 50 of them, put into this test for syphilis. They had no cure for it at the time. They couldn't, $50 to them or a lot of money, so they took the money. 1947, they found a cure for syphilis. It was penicillin, but they didn't give it to the sharecroppers. They kept them in the experiment until 1972, when you have these investigative reporters who couldn't get it published in the mainstream paper, gave that information to the alternative press, including the Black Panther Party. And when we began to publish it along with the other alternative press, that's when they stopped the test. In that time, many of them had died, passed on the disease to their families, and what have you. It was called the Tuskegee experiment. We had a seniors program, Seniors Against a Fearful Environment, called SAFE. And we would take them shopping to pick up their groceries. We would pick them up from the satellites houses. They had senior programs at our culture center for them and all these things that went on. But this time we were protesting against the fact that Oakland, California wanted to spend $54,000 on a helicopter to patrol the community against crime. And what we're saying here is that if you really want to stop crime, you don't take the $54,000 invested in a helicopter. You take the $54,000 invested in young people to take the senior shopping, to take them to get their groceries. Then you dealing with stopping crime. And so this is what we're pointing out here, that contradiction. Today's news. Hypertension kills. I'm hungry. I'm unemployed. I'm black. Here's one of my images that were remixed by the Cuban artists back in the day. These two images are mine here. A lot of young people who used to go work in the sugarcane brigades from the activists during that day used to see these images, and they thought I was copying the Cuban art. They said, you didn't do that work. We've seen that in Cuba. And then I had to show, and for a long time, that was what they thought. And these next two images show you where the images came from. These were the original images that I did that they remixed into this amazing, beautiful poster. They also did this one called Solidarity with Afro-American People Struggle in 4 different languages, August 18, 1968. It's in 4 different languages. It's called Tricontinental Posters, that OSPAL Organization of Solidarity with people from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. They made amazing political and social justice posters during that period. This is the original art. That's how we knew they were reading the paper, because this art was maybe about a 2 by 4 inch interior of the paper. Afro-American solidarity with the oppressed people of the world. The conspiracy to destroy the Black Panther Party, COINTELPRO, which mentioned in the film, counterintelligence program, spent over $22 million of misinformation to try to discredit and destroy us by any means necessary. Mark Fred Hampton, who was the leader, charismatic leader of Chicago branch, was murdered by the United States government. We got documents and proof that there were discussions that went on in the White House about these raids that they were going to take against the Black Panther Party. In the back was Mark Clark, who was the second in command of the Southern Illinois chapter of the party. It's a film called The Murder of Fred Hampton. You can see it on YouTube. It tells you that whole story. This was Trick or Treat, Pig, Trick or Treat. This was Halloween. And this was President Richard Nixon then, Vice President Spiro Agnew. Both of them criminals running the government. Both had to leave office in disgrace. Criminals like today running the government. I wonder if Nixon is bugging us now. I wonder if Trump is spying on us now. I, Gerald Ford, am the 38th puppet of the United States. People are becoming to realize that this is what runs the government. People come out to woodwork you never seen before when all this Wall Street began to collapse and all this other stuff. This is, president is a puppet. He may have some say, but the president is a puppet. It was King Nixon. He wanted corporate profits was going up, defense spending going up, consumer buying power going down. Flush it down the toilet. 1968, LBJ, the Great Society. Trump, now, the Great Society. Flush it down the toilet. Ain't about nothing. Class brothers. Cautious, surviving is criminal. Prison camps, USA, the unknown slave. Today they talk about it as the prison industrial complex. And they have private prisons. They build them all over the world. And what you have, when you have private prisons, you're in the business of making money, a profit. It's just like you got a store. You ain't got no product on your shelf, enough product on your shelf, you're not going to make any money. So you have to have a product to make money, enough product to make money. So that means that as long as you got private prisons, you're going to have X amount of people going to always be incarcerated because it's about profit. You got to have a product to make profit. Why must black people look at each other through prison bars? Where is our freedom? My suffering, my bitterness, my loneliness, I'm not going to let it get me down. I'm not going to let it turn me around. George Jackson was a common criminal. Brother went to prison, became conscious, and started the first chapter of the Black Panther Party inside prison at San Quentin Prison. This is Huey Newton to your right, Bobby Seale to the left, the two co-founders of the Black Panther Party. Free the New York 21, Tupac's mom was a member of the Black Panther Party. Athena Shakur, they were charged with over 100 certain charges, bombing stuff, everything. Went to court within 4 hours, everything was dismissed. It was set up, frame up. We supported Angela Davis. She was a close friend of ours and an ally. This is when they were trying to electrocute Bobby Seale in the lecture chair in New Haven, Connecticut, when I said he was exonerated. This says, hallelujah, the might and the power of the people is beginning to show. This was after Bobby Seale was found not guilty and Erica Huggins in New Haven, and this image was done in connection with that. We always show our respect for the original caretakers of the land, the American Indians. AIM was our partners, an American Indian movement. They were close allies of ours. Here at Homecoming, Sonia Sanchez's first poetry book. I did the artwork for, she asked me to do an artwork for her first poetry book called Homecoming. Now we're going into the more recent ones, color ones. This is one I did of Dr. King when I worked with the Black Press. And I remixed it a little bit. This one I call Forever, like a stamp of Dr. King, Malcolm X, called Forever. This is a woman who used to sit in the back of our office and get her paper every week. And she would sit out there and read her paper. And so I just did that and added some context to what she might have been thinking when it says, it's a darn shame how the government won't give us, the needy, a helping hand. Here again is a remix of an older end called People's Free Food Program. Here we are living in the land of plenty while we, the people, starve. And here's this brother, he used to be Slush. This is a real actual photograph of Slush. And every time he'd get his paper, he would be staggering, but he'd come in every week and get his paper. And so I did this in honor of him. It says, I know one thing, the next time I vote, it's gonna be for people's power only. We've been lied to, murdered, jailed, brutalized, unemployed, neglected as infant, young adults, and senior citizens, forced to fight wars of aggression, manipulated to support wars against liberation. Again, you've seen earlier, our struggle continues from one generation to the next. Our fathers and our mothers were sharecroppers in the same fields that our brothers who worked with Cesar Chavez and them worked. I remember as a kid going down there with family members into those fields. Educate to liberate, freedom. Mama said HIV/AIDS is an act of genocide in Africa, and it's an epidemic in our community. Why? Because in Africa, they can't get to generic drugs because it's not profitable. That's why it's genocide. Health is wealth. I like to say, yeah, it's non-toxic. Here it says, I'm food insecure. I'm homeless. This one shows the many social programs that we had. We had a free busing to prison program all across the country where we take the loved ones of those who were incarcerated to visit those who were incarcerated. We had a free ambulance service in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, the first chapter in the South, because the ambulance service was reluctant to come into the community. And so the Panthers got certified, and the community helped them buy an ambulance. So we had a Black Panther community ambulance service in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We had doctors and nurses who worked at the clinics. We had an alternative school. McKinney was one of the best alternative schools in the state of California. Father's love, mother's love. This is the most recent one I did. It says on the button, I am we, and Serena with all the situations that she had at every time she plays, she has to deal with all those issues. Kaepernick, this is in solidarity with the younger generation and the issues that they're dealing with, and that are no different than 50 years ago. This is Bluest Eye, Toni Morrison's book, where I was a part of an exhibition on banned books in this country. Over 104 books have been banned, or they attempted to ban them, or censored them. And so I chose Toni Morrison's book to do at Bluest Eye, about a young girl who life was very miserable. Her mother thought because she was not a beautiful child when she was born, that she was going to have a rough life, and she did. She was abused. She lived in this fantasy world. She was confronted with racism, all these things in the book. But on the last page, Toni Morrison said something about the possibility that she could have been assassinated. Then that came to me that you don't have to be assassinated by a bullet. You can be psychologically assassinated. And she was psychologically assassinated by life, by life's journey. Here again is one with Asian American, Japanese American, African American reparations. Greg Morozumi, artist who wanted to curate this particular exhibition, and I contributed this to the exhibition, along with this one here, with the words reparations spelled out as figures. This here is a West African Dogon sign saying, you are a slave of him whose handcuffs you wear. Freedom, with the book and the fist behind it. Justice, resist unjust laws. This was actually a wood cut 3 feet by 7 feet in collaboration with Fabiana Rodriguez, well-known Chicano artist, where she invited me to work with her on a project along with some other artists. This is a Black Scholar, Black Politics, 1989. I was asked to do the cover of Black Scholar. And as you see, I had the donkey and the elephant both eating out the same trough. Ain't no difference. The thing is, you got good people in there, but they ain't got no power. They ain't got no say. It's institutional structural racism. All that controls that. So they ain't got no power. Toxic snake, Republican Party, Democratic Party. It's a two-headed snake. Again, there are good people in there, Barbara Lee, Congresswoman, worked with us when she was a young girl going to Mills College. The only one who stood up against the war in Iraq, opposed it. She always says she was a community worker with the Panthers. Comes to all the events and what have you. Those are good people inside there. But they don't have no power. Fascist xenophobe. A real white supremacist. Lies out of his mouth anywhere he turns. He always lying, no matter what. Commander-in-chief. Not, as Obama said, torture as I say. Because Obama tortured. Guantanamo Bay didn't close. Still ain't closed. When Obama was the president, he may have been a good family man, as you see to the left. But when he was doing the stuff for the government, it was very evil, very evil. He had a kill list. They had a kill list that they put together where they decided on who they were going to assassinate in the world. Anybody. It could have been anybody who they thought or feared. That's why I say that he was a Nobel fraud. Because when he gave the peace speech, he didn't give a peace speech. He gave a war speech. If you go and you listen to it, I mean, he's a great communicator, very personal person. May have been a very loving father and what have you. But we ain't talking about personality. We're talking about the reality of what exists as a person who was the president of the United States, as they all have been before him as well as now. Talk about drone warfare. Drone warfare, intended collateral damage. Pakistan, Afghanistan, Africa. 10, 11 people or more killed when all those strikes go down. Then you have others who come in to help them. Then they send another ordinance in, kill more people. And you wonder why we're in the situation we are in today. What war does to human beings. The cycle, look at that. You got people maimed and bombed, all hundreds of thousands of people all over the world. Guilty of genocide. Genocide, the deliberate killing of a large group of people, especially those of a particular ethnic group or nation. Free the land by any means necessary. Boycott, divest, down with apartheid. Talking about the government system. BDS, boycott, divest, sanctions, down with apartheid. I believe in free speech. Peace heals, war kills. Contemplating peace, the word peace, when I did these, I was contemplating what peace, and then I said peace is being attacked. So peace is relative. Peace can be peace, peace can be attacked. At the top, you got peace is being attacked. And below, you got peace being blooded. You got the private contractors, all those, the private military contractors making money off of it. We don't even know when we go, what we're sitting on was made by a private military contractor. Because all of them in it. All these corporations are in it some kind of way, making money. Yemen, I did just before Yemen even people became aware of it, when I read enough to get enough facts to do this illustration. Then the United States was denying that it was helping the Saudis, and also the British were involved. Both of them denied that they were helping, and I call it crimes against humanity. You have millions food insecurity, millions displaced, thousands injured, humanitarian import blockade, thousands dead, water shortage, fracked. World is impacted by global warming, by toxic waste, all of these things. This one's called SOS, global warming. Mother Earth, This again, global warming. As the earth is cracked, you see a lot of this in Africa and in some parts, all other parts of the world. Arab, Muslim, Islam. U.S. government's coded word for terrorist hate discrimination. Black male, U.S. government's coded word for hate, discriminate, kill. Police terror, USA. As much as things change, some things stay the same. Why do they get to brutalize and murder us and we get to blame? Police terror, USA. The black code. A black person has no rights, which an institutional racist judicial system is bound to respect. It gives the appearance of being fair and just when the biased decisions have already been decided. Attorney General, USA. Legal lynching then and now. Black Lives Matter, justice now. Black Lives Matter, Black lives love the flowers, love the beauty of life. Black Lives Matter, the beauty, fresh air. Dare to struggle, dare to win. This is a collaboration with Aboriginal artist Richard Bell. As you see some of those images I did earlier on in black and white. We did them at Campbelltown Art Center. This is about the longest stage, about 16 feet high. We worked on 10 days together in Campbelltown Art Center and outside of Brisbane, Australia. Here again, we worked in the alley. This is Richard Bell there. And we worked on 3, and this is a well-known Aboriginal activist named Gary Foley, and he was holding a sign, "Pardon me for being born into a nation of," and it says racist. This is another sign in the alley where they want to remix the one that I did on reparations because that's their demand as well, the Aboriginal there. They want to do this one on John Carlos and Tommy Smith and Peter Norman. Peter Norman was the white athlete who won second place in that race when John Carlos and Tommy Smith gave the award, the Black Power sign. He was in solidarity with them. He wore the badge for Olympians for Human Rights at the Olympics, and he was in solidarity with them. When the next Olympics came up in 1972, he still had the best qualifying time for Australia, but they wouldn't allow him to run again because he supported John Carlos and Tommy Smith at the 1968 Olympics. A lot of young people in Australia wasn't aware of who he was, so they asked us to do this wall painting. These are my images, Zapatero Negra, embroideries done by the Zapatista Mayan Women Collective in Chiapas. There's 6 of my images reinterpreted with Zapatista and Mayan symbols in them. We've showed them in Australia, New Zealand, in the Bay Area, in various places. Here's again, see. There's 6 of them. This is when we went to Chiapas and we went into the jungle. They had to paint this to do inside the school. They're very loving people. They give you tender love and care, but they can't. They don't have no money, those kinds of things. So you have to bring your own paint, your own sleeping bags, all those things. We slept up here on this here, pitch black at night, no air coming through. We had bats flying over us, all these kinds of things. You had to go to the bathroom. You got to go down out the back and down the hill to the his and hers, a hole in the ground. So we were roughing it for a while. And we stayed there for about a couple of days. The first day it rained, and then thereafter the second day we was able to have enough paint to highlight the interior of some. This is like their auditorium. This is where they do. They come and have their talks and presentations at. This is me in this store, a Zapatista store, and I was being introduced to the owners of the store because we were coming back to paint this store a year later. And this is when we came back to paint the store a year later. As you can see, the total difference between it then and here now. As we had about 18 or 19 of us. It's about solidarity. It was about culture, education. All those things were part of what you see on the walls of the store itself. Those were my contribution to the mural aspect of it, with the snail and solidarity, education, production, culture. They consider themselves people of the corn. I did that one. Those are the dials that you've seen up on the platform, the Zapatista dials. So it was a major installation. People still travel that way. They tell us that the store is still there, everything is still intact. We did this several years ago. I used the Napa, the 43, the youngsters who were missing, disappeared in Mexico, showing solidarity with that, concern with that issue there as well. Here's when I visit school, Allendale Elementary School, the Tigers in Oakland. This is in Urbison, Manchester, England. When I was there, had an exhibit there in 1969, and did a master class with these young people who were just building up their self-esteem, they inspired. Their work was included into the exhibit. The exhibit went on from November of 1968 until 2009, April, and they claimed they had over 43,000 people at the exhibit. This shows you some of the exhibition itself. You had desks with books that were required reading of the Black Panther Party connected to each desk. So when people come in, they could sit down and read the same stuff that we were required to read during that time, as well as look at audio and video of different Panther films. This is opening night of the exhibition itself. This is a symbol that I was working on when I did a work with collaboration with the Maori artist and Wayne Ewell in Auckland, New Zealand, and it's a twist symbol. I got ring light come on, say I got 15 minutes, so I'm gonna go fast as I can. And I'm gonna stop when the light turns red. And so I had to figure out how to do the twist symbol, which they say was just a plain symbol, but I wanted to have an impact. So I took the symbol itself. It means we may go different ways, but we always come back together. And so I took the Maori flag and twist symbol and combined it together, and I came up with this as my design. Overcoming oppression is our path to unity. I was given this by a Maori friend of mine who gave me the Maori language, but gave me the general, what it meant generally in English. This is at the exhibition itself. It was in South Auckland, in the hood part of South Auckland. This is on the streets when first time I went to invited to Elam International School of Fine Arts. They on the streets all up about a university when they had the images posted on the walls where I did present. I was there for 51 days to do artist in residency, but there was so much interest in what I was doing that I had to travel to North and South Island for the whole time I was there. This is when I visited the Samoan school there. All boy, amazing young artists, amazing young artists. This is at a library and also in Auckland, where they were talking about an action about land rights, and they were trying to develop some concepts around some artwork, considering land rights and land grab of Maori land, one of the iwis, the tribes. This is in Argentina, Trimarchi. Young people invited me to Argentina to do a talk. They invite folks there, and I did the talk. This is they got a football stadium, basketball stadium, young artists, just young artists, all in the corridor, young artists with their work and stuff. Outside, they had skateboarding, music playing. This is in Portugal. This is at each step, each way you go up, there was an art painted on the wall of my work, also on the walls inside the exhibition itself. This one here is in Nottingham Contemporary in Nottingham. This is in Bogota, Colombia. Had an exhibit in Bogota. This is on the streets as you walk up and down the streets. This is in Sao Paulo, Brazil. This is outside of the location for the exhibition. Even they had the elevators. They had the elevator sign. About 5 or 6 elevators had artwork on it. This is showing you the installations and the stuff beginning inside the exhibition. As you see the people coming in and doing it. This is at the Lorraine Hansberry location, which is in Tennessee, where Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, has been made into it's a gallery, like museum, you could say. And they wanted to have social justice artwork from that period, and they wanted to remix the all power to the people image to be a part of that. This is dealing with the toxic waste, immigration, SB 1070 back in the day when Arizona initially started the highlight issue, and I was trying to show how that was toxic waste, how the private prisons and also ALAC, an American Legislative Exchange Council, would get together and they would frame the argument to the American people to accept the fact of what you see happening today. This is recent, where you got all the young people being snatched up from their families and stuff, the immigrants trying to come here. I call it ice cold wickedness. The baby is saying, mama, 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 mommy, papa, poppy. Now they got a desert where they got over 1,600 children in Texas, where they didn't take them away from their families, putting them to someplace in the desert out there in Texas. This is Free the Land. This is my contribution to a mural project. It was collaboration. It was Afrocentric artists, Japanese American artists, Native American artists, Latino American artists, also Arab American artists. There also was an Israeli American artist. All were part of this collaboration. This was my participation. This is showing dealing with the water issue, with the children. This is in solidarity with Haiti, and this is dealing with the water situation in Haiti when they had the UN military feces in the water, called cholera. Over 8,000, 10,000 Haitians died because of that, but the UN refused to acknowledge their involvement. They were the cause of the cholera epidemic. 100,000 more people got sick and ill. Endangered species, that's less than 1% of these youngsters who are gang banging out in the streets. They don't it's called mental bondage, where they pointing bullets, talking bullets. That image they liked, and this is one I did with some young people in New Zealand. But they didn't want it to be, they wanted to be, because you got gangs there. But they wanted to do the honey, what they do when they meet the honey, head to head. So they wanted that and designed to say something like peace. And so because they liked that image. So this is now at a mall across from the library in South Auckland, New Zealand. That's Tommy E.T. That's when I show you E.T. He's a well-known activist. He was one of the official ones when I first went there, who met me and took me and gave me official welcoming to the land. Well-known performing artist and activist. Here's showing you what about youngsters get into these prisons, don't realize they're getting into modern-day slavery. It's about profit. Here again, that one is as a private property, prison industrial complex. This one is dealing with justice, and this says free political prisoners now, justice now. Free Mumia Abu-Jamal, who well-known political prisoner, has commentary on Prisoners Radio. You can listen online. This is Leonard Peltier, innocent, a Native American, been in over 39, 40 years. This is to show solidarity and support for Leonard Peltier. And it's Free Political Prisoners USA, Freedom Fighters USA, Fighters for Peace, Justice, Freedom, particularly the struggle against recognized, cruel, oppressive conditions, government, inhumane policy, and action. I got a blue, I think I got to go in 1 second. And this one says, all power to the people. The button on her says all power to the people. The button on him says educate to liberate. This one says all power to the people. And thank you. Hope to see many of you at the gallery.